Welcome to the Tracker Installation and Training Guide. Today we're going to go over Apex device and analog device setup. We're going to open the Apex box, we're going to overview the device, install the hardware to the computer, add and connect the Apex device, and finally add an analog signal to Tracker. I'm going to go over the Apex and what comes in the box. First thing you'll see is the USB Bluetooth dongle as well as a USB charging cable. Next, you have the Apex device itself as well as the USB wall socket charger with adapter plugs for whatever country you are in. And that's what comes in the Apex box. Now we'll do an overview of the Apex device. One of the first things you'll notice is the power button located on the inside, which will light up when pressed and turned on. Then you have the USB charging port right below it, and the trigger button on the inside of the grip. As we move to the top of the Apex device, you can see there's quite a lot going on. One of the first things you'll notice is the LED status indicators on the front, which will show you battery power and status of the Apex. Next is the joystick and joystick button. Then you have the three other buttons which you can map out. Finally, you have the active LEDs with their own unique configuration. As we move to the front of the device, you can clearly see the sensor on the front, which will sense the camera strobe and make the Apex device LEDs match that strobe. Once you've plugged in and added the Bluetooth dongle to the system, we're going to go ahead and add the Apex device. Make sure it's turned on and sitting inside of your volume. Next, you're going to right-click Other Devices and press Add Apex Device. If this is your first time adding it, it might take a couple seconds for it to show up, but because I've already added it before, it shows up right away. So I'm just going to click it and press Add, and now the Apex device should be added. You can see that it automatically created the object in the volume, and you don't need to create the object for the Apex device. Now that we've added the Apex device, we can go over through some of the settings of the Apex device in Tracker. When you click Show Advanced on the Apex device, you can see there's quite a few settings that change how the Apex device functions. First, you can change the name of the Apex device if you'd wish. Next is delay compensation. That is going to cause a delay in the data stream code from the Apex device. Then there's LED intensity. Its default is set to 2. If you want to increase the intensity, bring it up. If you want to lower it. Next is continuous mode. Turning that on will leave the LEDs on, not strobe. It works very similar to the active wand. Basically, when the Apex device comes into the scene, it will search for the camera's strobe. Once it finds it, it will match the frequency and strobe that way. Then there is a sleep setting. If you turn this on, if it does not sense movement for a certain amount of time, the Apex device will shut off. Then there's status indicators. This will turn off the 2 status LEDs on top of the Apex device. There is Identify, which shows you which Apex device you are holding. It's very useful for multiple Apex devices in the scene. And then there's Haptic Feedback. What that does is it causes it to buzz if you press any of the buttons. Finally, there's Information. That will give you serial number and or firmware and other things that you might need. Underneath the Apex device, you can see there is a stick with X and Y location based on the joystick. And then there is 5 buttons. The trigger button, joystick button, left, right, and bottom button. Each of these can be mapped out and read through the SDK. And that is all of the Apex device's settings and features. Now I'm going to go over how to add an analog device to Vicon Tracker. You first want to make sure that you've properly connected up your BNC box and or patch panel to your GigaNet, or you have the lock connected correctly. Next, you're going to right-click Other Devices, add a generic analog, right-click Generic Analog, and add one of these. I'm going to pick Add Force. Then, I'm going to add a component by right-clicking, and now I have my component ready to go. You're not done yet. Next, you want to go back to your generic analog and make sure you've connected to the correct source if you have multiple giganets with analog cards. If you don't, there's only one option. So I'm going to pick MX2, so that's what's connected to it. And then I'm going to go to my component and add the correct pin. I've connected a power supply to pin 20 of my BNC box. And then I'm going to set my gain to 5 volts. Now if I look at it and go to Graph, I can see there's a signal coming in. And as I vary the signal up to 5 volts and back down to 0, you can see the signal is coming in nice and smooth. And that is adding a generic analog to Vicon Tracker.